This is the TRT Community Podcast, where we discuss all things testosterone.
Thank you guys so much for listening to the TRT Community Podcast. I'm Brandon Church, founder of the TRT Community. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what the TRT community is, what this podcast will be, and the history of the TRT community, a little bit about my story as well and why I started the community. We have tens of thousands of men and women that share their personal experiences, specifically to which doctors they've seen, what shortcomings they've experienced, what issues have arisen, that kind of thing. Our primary area would be our Facebook, our private Facebook group. We basically try to collectively help others avoid the pitfalls that we've experienced, and we just want to spread that word. In the future, we want to cover all topics TRT. We want to talk about basic protocols. We want to answer questions, things to avoid, how to manage side effects, how to find a doctor, how to know if your doctor is going to do more harm than good, and all the way up to advanced research topics. We'll be doing interviews with peers, with researchers, and with doctors. I mean, we've got a vast reach here, and we can really get some good information going. That said, a little history about me and the TRT community. When I turned 30, it was like somebody flipped a light switch off. Seemingly overnight, I was fatigued, I was unfocused, I had no drive. My memory was terrible. I had to nap after work, and I had to write everything down just to basically function. So I began researching the potential causes and realized quickly that I should probably get my testosterone levels checked. At first, I thought, obviously I'm too young. I was 30 years old, but I was definitely wrong. All I knew about TRT was what you hear on daytime television. It's dangerous. There are lawsuits against these big companies. It causes heart issues, et cetera, et cetera. But, it was difficult for me to kind of research whether or not it was right for me, but my background was kind of adjacent to the medical field. So I was able to make sense of a lot of research studies that led me to believe that TRT was beneficial and was actually safer than having low testosterone. My first stop in my TRT journey was with a generic low testosterone clinic here in Dallas. I went into their office. They called me back into a room. They drew some blood, and within 10 minutes, they asked if I wanted to start treatment. And I think at the time, my testosterone levels were 377. That's nanograms per deciliter. Later, I would find out, I would realize that they only checked free and total T. They didn't check anything further. So they didn't investigate the potential root cause of my low T. They just said, you qualify to give us money, and we would like to inject you today. So that day, I began treatment. They took me into a different room. The nurse came in, asked me to, pull down my pants. She injected my glute with a harpoon, and that was really it. I continued with them for maybe 6 months, and I paid about $75 a week to visit this clinic and be injected by them. They started me on a dose somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 75 milligrams a week, and within a few weeks, I felt worse than I did when I first walked into their office. I was only taking testosterone at this point, and when I would express my concerns about how I'm not feeling anything or I'm feeling worse than I was, they would just kind of talk to me about how we have to dial you in. It's going to take some time. Be patient. They would really only up my dosage every 6 weeks or so, and they would draw blood every time. So keep in mind, I'm paying out of pocket each time additional funds whenever they need to do more blood draws, and that kind of thing. So I started digging a little bit deeper, and I realized that there was a good chance that I needed some additional medications to fully optimize my treatment. There are things other than testosterone, and I know it's kind of controversial, but there are benefits to HCG outside of just fertility. So I continued to research, and I realized that there wasn't a place that I could go that was kind of a one-stop shop that would give me solid peer support and anecdotal evidence and stories. So I started a Facebook group, and I called it the TRT Community. I can remember in the first year or so, how slowly it grew, I'd get really excited whenever we got our first 10 members, and then 30 members and 50 members, and I was stoked every time a member joined. I would run to my wife, and I'm not an excitable person, but I would run to my wife, and I was just so excited. Babe, we have 52 members, and it's been 6 months since I started the group, and it continued like that for quite some time. I think at the end of year one, we had 300 to 400 members or so, but every single one of them was exciting. I could see, at that point that it was really starting to benefit people. We were beginning to help guys avoid some of the same mistakes that we made. There was even on a small level, some doctor sharing going on. I live in your area. I saw this doctor. He did X, Y, and Z. I don't recommend him, or I do recommend him. So I kind of began to see what the community could do for other guys. So throughout, like I said, the first 6 months, I was still treating with the low T center. I wasn't feeling any benefits of testosterone. I was only feeling worse. So I was obviously looking for an alternative. What I wanted was a brick and mortar physician, somebody that knew his stuff, that accepted my insurance. And I realized really quickly that was the challenge. Finding a doctor that wasn't going to ruin your hormonal life, that, accepted your insurance, that could also be, function as your primary care physician. It was nearly impossible. I did manage to stumble upon a great local Dallas physician. If you're in the Dallas area, Kevin Eppel at Integrative Medical in Coppell. He's actually a nurse practitioner. He is phenomenal. He's primary care with a specialization in hormones and weight loss, I believe. I actually still use him to this day. I've been seeing Kevin for the better part of 5 years. Oh, and when I first went to Kevin, he immediately threw HCG into my protocol, and I wasn't necessarily looking to have children at that point, but it was, like I said earlier, there's so much more to using HCG outside of fertility issues. So because of my difficulties finding a doctor, I knew that the TRT community would one day become an industry leader in connecting guys with information and doctors. Things really got real once we hit around 3,000 members in 2017. We started having famous doctors join our group. They would reach out to me personally. I received a flood of partnership offers from businesses wanting to access my group members, doctors and third parties as well. Since then, the group's had a few bumps along the way. The vision at this point, though, is to continue to grow and provide the best information in America. I think that we can be the biggest and best knowledge source for TRT. Thank you guys so much for listening to the TRT Community Podcast. This is episode 1, and I'm not going to lie, it was rough. I think in the future, I'm just going to flip the mic on and just stream of consciousness it to you guys. This was a little bit rough. I tried to read a little bit of a script. I tried to cut and paste. My editing skills are poor, so I apologize. If you stuck through this episode, try it again with the next episode. I will get better, I promise. If you want to join our email list, text TRT to 66866. And if you want to check out the private Facebook group, you can find that at facebook.com/groups/TRT Community. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the TRT Community Podcast. You can find us online at facebook.com/groups/TRT Community.